an adult wouldn't kick and scream or cry or have a panic attack. There's something more to this, and that's why you're having a triggered response. There's a fight or flight. So when that happens, the question I have everybody ask, what am I making this mean? Because whatever you're making it mean is what you already believe.
%83 of Americans identify as not very happy, which can hold you back and negatively affect your relationships and your business. On this podcast, we discuss the proven steps to happiness so you can restore balance and rekindle your joy.
Welcome to another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Today, as our guest, we have Natalie from across the pond. How are you, Natalie?
I'm well, thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me.
And tell our viewers and listeners, where are you actually from today?
Yeah, so I'm Australian. Hope I've still got a bit of an accent, but I live in Copenhagen. I'm married to a Dane. So yeah, I'm in Europe, in Scandinavia.
Awesome. I've never been there. I'd love to visit. So we always just jump right in. So Natalie, when we've talked in the past, I know you describe relationships as mirrors to our lifelong issues. Can you elaborate on how understanding this dynamic can lead to a deeper personal healing and just more fulfillment?
Yeah, I think we tend to attract what we need in relationships. We're always a perfect match for whatever we bring into our lives. I love working on relationship dynamics, and we can often get caught up in the futility of trying to change our partners. But we forget that in changing ourselves, which is the only thing we have any power over anyway, shifts will happen automatically in our relationships. So it's very much like chemistry, the way that unstable elements are drawn to each other because they're both missing the electrons in the outer sphere that each other need. I think of it like that, as that analogy. And my aim is to help us become noble gases, meaning we're fully stable on our own. And then we attract other noble gases, noble people to have relationships with. So we're not sort of in these entanglements, enmeshments. Yeah.
So why do we so often attract people just like us, or people like the person who was like instrumental in our trauma as a child?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for one thing, we will we will be drawn to what feels familiar because it's safe. It's like the better the devil you know type situation where you'll attract what feels familiar. So a lot of people end up like marrying someone who's just like their parent because that's what feels familiar. But we're a match for it. So I'll try and explain the different dynamics, I suppose, some examples so that it illustrates this in an easier way. So let's say you are a people-pleasing type. Then you're going to attract people who love to take because that's the match for someone who loves to overgive. So I heard this funny quote once that made me laugh. It said, "You can't get angry at people for sucking you dry if you're handing out the straws." and that's sort of what it is. It's like you've got this a breach in your energy in a way where you're leaking energy, and so people that are going to line up to get the free energy. If you don't believe you're worthy and you think you have to earn your worth, then you're going to overgive and you're going to do more than you need to do, and you'll attract people who are very happy to take advantage of that, and that will be the match. And you'll wonder, like, gosh, people are such takers. I feel like I do everything in this relationship or even in friendships. I never get to speak. She just yabs on the whole time and she never actually asks about me. You'll hear things like this, and it's easy to see the other person, but your part in it is, what is it in me that makes this possible, that allows this and attracts this? So that's one example, the people pleaser and the taker. Shall I go on with more? Did you have any questions about that?
No. That makes sense. Because I mean, you use the word safe and familiar. Even if it's unsafe, like technically unsafe, like I grew up in an abusive household, I'm going to go marry someone who's abusive. people hear that and they'd be like, how is that safe? But it's safe in the context of you may have gotten abused physically or mentally, but you're still alive, right? And your subconscious mind, its only role is to keep you alive. So it's like, all right, well, you got hit, but you're still alive. So we're just going to recreate this. What you said is familiar, which is just it's so interesting to me because I did it twice. I married my father twice.
Yeah. Until we wake up, I also, and I knew it. That's the funny thing is I knew it was coming. At 13, I went to this conference with this amazing man called Michael Rowland. He's passed away now, but he was the first one who sort of opened my eyes to how the subconscious works. And I was, a young teenager, and I went, oh my God, there's no escape. I'm going to marry my father. There's nothing I can do about it. It sort of felt like a prophecy almost. And Carl Jung says that until you make the subconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So it is. We're drawn to repeat things until we can get the lesson that we need to learn.
And it took me 47 years to get that lesson. At 28 years old, when I got married, if someone would have said, here's $1 million, go marry your father, I'd have been like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't want to marry my father. And I wouldn't know how to do it. But sure enough, I did it. So Natalie, what is your story and how did you get to be doing this work?
So I guess it began when I was 13 and I learned about the subconscious mind and how it worked. And I was at an early age always very interested in this stuff. I was reading Louise Hay at 15.
Wow.
So yeah, I was an early, I was a seeker from an early age. But it was a long and winding road, and I'll cut to where it finally ends up that I start doing what I do now is around 6-7 years ago, I quit my job because it just wasn't fulfilling and I decided to completely change direction. And I didn't know what that was going to be. I was like, all I know is I can't do what I used to do. And I waited. And not long after that, I found out I came across Marissa Peer and her work. And I went, here it is. This is what I've been waiting for. It's something that works at the subconscious level that creates rapid results in people. And so I trained with Marissa in rapid transformational therapy. And I've been doing this now very successfully for about 6 years. I've seen thousands of clients, seen incredible stories, amazing transformations. And I think it's given me a map because I've been under the hood of so many people and understood what's driving the issues. It's given me a map, and I feel very interested in the dynamics of relationships and in healing the inner beliefs and the healing our heart, mind, and soul, really, so that we attract better relationships, friendships. We're better parents. We break generational trauma so we don't repeat what our parents did because they didn't have the awareness. Relationships are where I feel really passionate and excited.
I love it. And you're the person who led me to Marissa in RTT, and Marissa RTT has led me to other amazing teachers. I feel like I have been trained by some of the best people in the world because of the start I got with Marissa. So thank you for that. Natalie, what are some common dynamics that throw relationships off balance, and how can couples navigate these challenges effectively?
Yeah. So I mentioned already the people pleaser and the taker. So that's one. The other one that I see a lot is the martyr and the slacker. So the martyr is the one that's like, I have to do everything, and they resent having to do everything, but they won't let anyone else help them either. And so what this will then, if you're doing everything, then the person on the other side of the relationship, one is going to feel like nothing they do is good enough. So, I had a client whose husband went, oh, I'll vacuum, I'll help out. She's complaining about having to do everything all the time herself. So he went to vacuum the floor and he just went to sit down with a drink. And she walked in and the vacuum cleaner had been left out. And she didn't say, oh, well, honey, thanks for vacuuming. She went, oh, left the vacuum cleaner out. I suppose I'll put it away then, shall I? And, it's a typical thing. And then it just sort of solidifies the dynamic because that person who has tried to be helpful, just was, why do I bother? It's never good enough. And so they just end up doing less and less and less, and that dynamic just perpetuates itself. So that's the martyr and the slacker. And I think the slacker, sometimes it's just like, I won't bother because the other person's doing it all. And other times it's, well, if I try, I'm only going to disappoint them. So I won't, I'll let them do it.
Do you think there's any correlation between a slacker and a narcissist? I know this is a long shot, but.
Narcissists are usually the match for the wounded empath. So, I wouldn't say a slacker would be narcissistic so much. They would just be, I'd love to help, but you won't let me. It's like there's a block to receiving help and support because the martyr has been let down in the past as a child. They've learned, if I rely, I'm going to be disappointed. So I'm not going to rely. I'm going to do everything myself. And also, I'm so angry that it has to be me. Like, why can't you help me? But I'll never ask for help because I wouldn't dare risk the disappointment I'd feel if you didn't support me in the way I hoped. And that's where the healing has to happen. That's how we shift these relationships, which we'll get onto, is to, well, what's creating this dynamic? Why is this person a martyr? It's because, and the people pleaser, they don't believe they're good enough, so they have to overdo it to try and make up for their worth, their existence on the planet. They need to pay for it. So you'll like them. So that needs healing. And then they won't be a match for people who take. The martyr needs to feel, you know what? I know you couldn't rely on people when you were younger, but that's not you anymore. And to heal and rescue their inner child, do everything that we do within an RTT session so that they can let go of that need to be in control of everything, do everything themselves. So that's the martyr and the slacker. Any questions? I've got others as well to talk about. The other one that I see is the pursuer and the distancer. So this is that anxious avoidant dynamic. So anxious clingy behavior will push people away because no one wants to feel like they're responsible for another person's happiness. So this happens also in childhood where you feel you've maybe been abandoned, you don't feel like that person's going to stay, and you feel like you have to prove or earn or keep them there with you. And no one wants to feel responsible for making another person feel loved or happy. So you can feel that when someone demands of your time, energy, or attention, there'll be this need to pull away.
Beautiful.
Okay.
I love it.
Where did you go?
We lost internet. It's the first time ever. So,
good, you're back. I kept talking because it said live. So I'm like, I'll keep going because maybe people are watching.
Absolutely. And it's recording. So we're all good. So, I'm sure what you said was amazing stuff. I heard some of it before we went off. So the next question is, you mentioned that partners who often complain might also exhibit controlling behavior. How can recognizing these traits help in achieving a healthier relationship dynamic?
Yeah. So back to that martyr type that I spoke about before. Controlling behavior stems from a belief you can't rely on anyone else, so you have to do it yourself or micromanage them because, that person, you're not doing it right. No, that's not how you chop the carrots. That kind of micromanagement. And then you also resent having to be in control. You just wish someone was as amazing as you who could just take over, but no one is. No one's as good. But once you recognize this, you can begin the process of healing it. Like I spoke about before, you have to realize, wow, I'm like this because I was let down as a child and too much was put upon me. It's often that, and it creates a lot of overwhelm as well. So for me, it's the subconscious work, whether that's RTT or conversational hypnosis or anything that works at the level of the subconscious to reach where these beliefs and behaviors are actually run from, and clear whatever it was that's happened to you. Not, as we always say, it's not what's happened to you that has caused this, it's what you made it mean at the time. So it's changing the meaning that you've given it. That's what healing really is changing the story that you're telling yourself.
So Natalie, when you work with clients, do they come as a couple, or does one come and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm in a really bad place. My marriage is about to collapse"? And then do you work with that person, or do you often bring in the other person?
Yeah, it usually starts, most of my work is one-to-one, on the principle that when you change, the relationship changes. But I have had it happen where, say, a woman has come to me to work on something, not even relationship based, just has had premenstrual dysphoric disorder or anxiety or had something in herself. And this is actually what I call the helpless and the hero dynamic, the story I'm about to tell now. So my client Tina came to me. She was depressed, anxious. She couldn't get out of bed some days. We healed all of that. She became empowered, loved herself, confident, all these things. Fantastic. Trouble is, her partner then suddenly felt very insecure. Because he'd always been the rock to her. And he said, I need a session with you because I'm feeling really wobbly now. And when we went back to his childhood in hypnosis, he'd actually learned that the only way that he was going to be loved is when he was there to rescue. His mother was a single mom. She had a string of boyfriends and she was always out with a boyfriend, and he'd be left home on his own watching TV. And the only time she was home and with him is when she was between relationships and often crying and, but at least you're here with me. And so he got this feeling like I'm only lovable when I'm rescuing. And so what felt familiar to him was the broken woman. That's when he felt most loved. And so when she became whole and fixed and healed, he went, you're not going to need me. Just like when mum was happy and with someone and off doing her own thing, he was discarded, and it brought all that up for him. And so then he had to heal his part. And that dynamic had to shift. They went from being the helpless and the hero to two noble elements side by side. Yeah.
That is so fascinating to me. And it's just unfortunate how so few people in the world understand that what you just said is kind of an example, a microcosm of pretty much every problem in the human race, right? We have these painful times as a child where we create these meanings and these learned emotions around, this is how I survive. I only get loved when I'm helping someone who's wounded. And that was just that little boy was just trying to survive because it was really painful that his mom never loved him all those other times. And then it completely affects everything in his life. He could have become an alcoholic or a meth addict or something. So it's so great that you're bringing this to the world, because if what Carl Jung said about making the unconscious conscious, that's when my life changed. And I'm sure with you too, and with your countless clients, like, we have got to realize that our unconscious mind is driving most of our behavior that we want to change. That's been so hard to change all these years.
Yeah. And the question I often have my clients ask, and you can do this yourself and anyone who's listening, if you get triggered, like when you're triggered, it's like a grain of salt has hit a wound. You're not really upset for the reason you think, because people go, no, because it really was upsetting. I go, yeah, but an adult wouldn't kick and scream or cry or have a panic attack. There's something more to this, and that's why you're having a triggered response. There's a fight or flight. So when that happens, the question I have everybody ask, and I ask myself this too if ever I feel triggered, what am I making this mean? Because whatever you're making it mean is what you already believe. So let's just think of an example. I had a client recently who her husband it was her birthday. He was supposed to be home for dinner for her birthday. And he messaged to say, I'm so sorry. I can't leave right now. But there was something with work. I'm not sure what he did for work, but let's just say he's a surgeon and there's a baby who needs saving. Okay. And he just couldn't leave. And by the time he got home, she was so upset. She was in rage that he'd been late for her birthday dinner. And I asked her, what did you make that mean? And she said, well, obviously. And whenever anyone says obviously, I know it's a fixed, there's no other way to see this. I want to see it. I want to confirm what I already believe. Obviously, he doesn't care about me. And if he doesn't care about you, what does that mean? She said, obviously, I'm just not worth it. And when we had a session, everything went back to the belief, I'm not worth it. And that was a big wound for her. So anything that reminded her of that would create a huge rage response of so painful, because it was hitting on a belief that she'd formed about herself, I'm not worth it. And this is what I always find, that everything that we think other people are doing to hurt us, they're actually a mirror to what we believe about ourselves. I'm not worth it. It's not he thinks I'm not worth it. It's I'm not worth it. That must mean I'm not worth it. See the self-rejection and the self-abandonment in that? And so if she knew she was worth it, she becomes robust. She's able to say, okay, what else could it mean? Well, it could mean that if he leaves right now, this baby's life is at risk. Okay. Does it mean I'm not worth it? Of course not. I'm absolutely worth it. This is just a circumstance. Something's gone wrong. We'll make it up. We'll make up for it tomorrow, or he'll be home soon, or you'd see it in a completely different way. But when you're wounded, that grain of salt hits so hard, and you think it's the grain of salt that's hurt you, because you're not aware there's a wound there.
I'm studying under a pretty interesting gentleman that's been doing this work since the 70s. And he's like, people talk about wanting to live a meaningful life. He goes, I want to lead a meaningless life. And by that, he means
I get it.
Just see the event as it is and don't place a meaning on it.
Not assigning a meaning to it. Yeah.
So if this lady, if your client would have just been like, oh, he's late, he can't come home, there must be something really important. Not, it's more important than me and I'm not important. But she made that bad by placing a meaning on it. That's what we do as human beings, and we don't have to. The tree doesn't say, oh, this storm really sucks, and I lost my branch. That must mean that I'm a weak tree. The tree just takes the beating and just keeps growing the best it can, right?
Yeah, it's the meanings we make of things that hurt us. And we'll always make it mean what we already believe anyway, which circles us back round to how our relationships mirrors. Because whatever meaning you place on the things that happen in the relationship is putting a mirror up to what you believe about yourself already. You were just waiting for something to show you what you already believed. Incredible. And the beliefs will always try to confirm themselves and make themselves stronger.
Yes.
So you go.
No, go ahead.
And the wonderful thing is that if we know that to be true, the beliefs will always try to confirm themselves, and powerfully so. What happens when we change the belief, I'm not worth it, to I'm absolutely worthy, is that then looks for proof of itself. You know, it becomes, instead of a pain body, it becomes a love body that wants more, that looks for more confirmation of itself to be true. You know?
Yes. Yeah. When I look at my two marriages, we were both doing that. We were both trying to verify what we thought was already true, and it didn't end well. So that's so interesting. Natalie, what does the healing process look like in your practice?
Yeah. So I always begin with an intake where I just let the client, I go, what's the problem? And I just let them talk and tell me what's going on. And I start listening for keywords, things that sort of prick my ears up. There'll always be subconscious giveaways that gives me an idea. And I just ask a lot of questions around things, and especially the what did you make it mean? I'm very interested in what makes you angry. Like when were you last triggered? What sort of things have upset you? That's, I think, always really worth doing just in the digging phase, to go, okay, so this is the shape of the wound. We have an idea. And I ask the question, I have my clients finish this sentence, I wish I could, right? So this is the expansive part. I want to become this. I wish I could love myself, or I wish I could attract a wonderful partner, or I wish I could make more money, whatever it is. But I can't because. and then have them finish that sentence as quick as I can, because now we're talking about the restriction, the part that's trying to keep you safe. And then the session is always about the I can't because. We're going to go back. We're going into hypnosis, and then I have the mind regress back to the root, the cause, the reason for why, and then the block, why the block is there. And the mind is brilliant. The client usually has no idea what's driving it, because if you knew, you would have fixed it already. It's the subconscious stuff. But the mind knows exactly where to take you, and it'll take you back to the scenes. And I'm always looking for confusion in the scenes, because when we're confused, when there's cognitive dissonance, we have to make sense of it. And that's the original meaning that we make all the way back then. Oh, I thought mum would pick me up from kindergarten, but now she's not come. And I'm the last one here. And that must mean I don't matter. Boom, now you've got a belief, because it's happened at that impressionable 0 to 7 age. And it becomes part of your, and then I always ask as well, so they make the meaning, I don't matter. So I'm going to have to do everything on my own. I'm going to have to rely on me. And then you get so I get the belief and then the coping mechanism by saying, and that must mean, so I'm going to have to. And this is like, oh, okay. But then they see very clearly how, right, there's the wound and here's the coping strategy I've got. And I see how I've been doing this in my life. And once you see it, you can say, okay, it didn't mean what I made it mean. You can look at not being picked up by your mum and go, okay, she was stuck in traffic. She wanted to be there, whatever. The meaning we've given to it as a young child is never the truth.
Never. Never.
No, never the truth, because a child will always make it about them. Children are very egocentric. So it must mean, I'm lacking. Children can't, the parents have to remain faultless, because we don't like to feel like our parents have got anything wrong with them. We like to feel, well, they know everything. They're in charge. I'm safe. And so it's not, a child will never say, oh, mum was hopeless that day, or mum forgot to look at her watch, and it can never, mum's perfect, so it can only mean I'm not important to her. Otherwise she would have been there. It's very childlike, the conclusions we come to, which is how it becomes so easy to let it go. When you see, oh my God, that's what's been driving it. I thought I wasn't loved. Of course I was. Or maybe I wasn't loved, but I can see it wasn't because I wasn't lovable. It was because my mother, her heart's completely shut down, poor thing. She was so stressed. That wasn't anything to do with me. That was mum. I couldn't see that when I was a child. I thought it was me. And that's the freedom as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Your parents can't be at flaw, because they are the ones who take care of you. And if there's something wrong with them, then you're screwed, right? From an attachment standpoint, you're going to be dead if you disattach. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. I had something else on my mind and it slipped me. So, let's finish on the subject of trauma bonds. Can you explain what a trauma bond is and how it affects relationships? Before you do, there's a infographic that Terry Cole put out. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a trauma bond on one side and a love bond on the other. And man, when I read that with my past relationships before I did the work, every freaking relationship I ever was in was a trauma bond. So tell us what a trauma bond is and how it affects us and how we can heal it.
Yeah, well, there'll be different definitions of what a trauma bond is, but I think of it as everything I've been talking about today. It's an enmeshment. It's where two people come together to try and work out their crap with each other. They're mirrors for each other's stuff. You'll also hear trauma bonding in terms of narcissistic abuse and that sort of thing, where the abuser alternates between abusive behavior and acts of kindness and affection, and that creates confusion, strengthens the emotional attachment as the victim of this clings to hope of returning to the positive phases. So that's often the way that trauma bonds are spoke about, as this narcissistic abuse situation. But I sort of look at it broader than that, and it doesn't have to be as abusive as is often said when people talk about trauma bonding, but just, the martyr and the slacker is a trauma bond, because the martyr has through trauma decided I can't rely on anybody, and now attracted someone who's like, well, okay, well, I won't pull my weight because you won't allow me to. And that kind of suits me very well because I quite like getting everything done for me. So I think what we've been speaking about this whole time is really trauma bonding is like the way that unstable elements come together to find stability and to work their stuff out on each other until to be mirrors to each other. Unfortunately, we don't wake up to it. So many people just keep attracting the same type of partner, not recognizing, hey, I'm the common denominator in this. Not all men are assholes. I'm a magnet for them, for this behavior. I'm never loved because I don't love myself. Yeah.
That's it. Problem in relationships, I say, is never about the actual relationship. It's about the relationship each individual has with themselves. So one of my clients came to me on the brink of divorce like 18 months ago, and now his marriage is amazing. And I never did a marriage counseling session, but what I did is I helped him reconnect with himself, which then helped him reconnect with his wife. So if you're going through whatever you're going through, any negative suffering that you're going through that you can't control, is exactly what Natalie has been describing this whole episode. And that is that negative behavior is trying to run from something that it thinks is more painful. So it's actually a solution. Your brain's thinking it's providing a solution. But the thing that we're running from, as you said, is always, always untrue. And we can just show the brain that it's untrue, then the negative behavior goes away. And if it's in your relationship, then that relationship can go from like really broken to healed and connected. You've seen this over and over again as I have in my own life and my clients. It's a beautiful thing. So if you want to fix your relationship, I don't know if going to marriage counseling and talking about holding hands more and being more affectionate is going to work for you, because when you have these underlying beliefs that I only get loved when I go rescue someone, like my mom when she was between boyfriends, a marriage counselor is not going to really help you with that. So anyway.
I actually summarized what you just said in one sentence a long time ago, and I often use this quote. Your biggest adult problems are your childhood solutions.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you can just think of the stories, the coping strategy you set up to protect yourself from the lie you've told yourself, I'm not lovable, so I'm going to have to earn love. That's the coping strategy. That's the solution. I'm going to have to earn love. I'm going to have to work really hard. I'm going to have to give and give and give and give, and then I'll be loved. That's your biggest adult problem now.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. If you're curious, if you have some of these underlying childhood issues that are still driving you, do yourself and your family, and maybe your business colleagues a favor. Go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz and take the 3-minute 12-question quiz, and it will show you your level of self-love. And if you lack self-love, it's likely from one of these meanings that Natalie and I have been talking about. Natalie, that was absolutely amazing. You always deliver such great content and great value. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's lovely to have the conversation. It's a big difference when you were here with someone I could talk to, and when I was like, okay, I'm talking flying solo. So thank you for giving me the space. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And that concludes another episode of How to Be Happy for Entrepreneurs. As I always remind you, I'm on a mission to help 1 million people end their suffering by getting rid of these limiting beliefs, these meanings we've been talking about from childhood. So if you can help me, I need your help. So if you can rate this show, if you can review it, if you can share it, anything you can do to get this word out, I would greatly appreciate it. And until next time, love heals all.
Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on more life-changing content. And if you're struggling, you don't have to. Go to bradchandler.com/contact. There, you can join the Facebook community of like-minded entrepreneurs, and you'll see a button to schedule your freedom and happiness call. See you on the next episode.